Fine.
So are you good for me to get them in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good. Everybody's back,
Okay.
and Mike was out there
Over
too.
here.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is everybody back on,
Yes.
Everyone who was
in the lobby?
everybody in now? Yeah.
So we're back in open session now, so along what we have on the agenda. So I will lead to, we have a kind of liaison here, Matt Conte. So with that, what we'll do is I'll turn it over to you, Matt, and after that, we can go around the room with any questions or comments we have for you. So
We go around and introduce ourselves.
Actually, I was gonna do that right here, so I'm just gonna, to go right to that. Want 3 super quick updates. Source of income is on the agenda for this Saturday. For your awareness, I know this commission had quite a bit on it. That's really the big one thing I wanted to update you on. Love to take, I don't know how you guys want to do it, but maybe, your name, how long you've been on the commission, what the biggest issues on the commission are for you. Those would be the couple, 3 things. And I thought I'd just see if we could, I'll take notes, hear from everybody, and then I'll try and respond to all the things that can work for you guys.
Yeah,
Maybe
sure.
Chair. Yep.
Okay. Bill Wright, Chair of the Commission. I've been on the commission for a little over 2 years now. I guess actually just kind of spurred on from our previous discussion, one of the biggest things that I think now that the commission should maybe be dealing with is, and not to steal your thunder, Walt, but that you brought up and others, is outreach more into the community on the existence of the commission, what the commission is there for, and how the commission can provide avenues of support to the community. That'll turn over to Walt.
Sergeant.
Yeah.
I've been a member for about 4 years. I've been a resident of Arlington for about 22 years.
Uh-huh.
And I've been very focused on the human rights residents of Arlington. Just like Bill said, one of my concerns has always been outreach and how to better promote what we do, how we do it, and how the board actually supports us. Because if the people don't know that the board supports us, we're therefore not a valid group. Thank you.
Carol Lieber. I have been on the commission for 5 years now. I have lived in Arlington for 34 years, long time. And one of the reasons I joined the Human Rights Commission, aside from my lifelong commitment to human rights and civil rights, is I really wanted to see the county do more to help people with disabilities. Unfortunately, that never seems to be on our agenda. It just keeps getting kicked down the road. So that's something that I think I have a strong passion for, and I think we need to focus on that. Thanks, Matt.
Got it. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Walter. Thanks, Bill. Go ahead.
Roland Watkins, I've been on the commission for about 12 years now. And I agree pretty much with everything that everyone has said. I kind of think a huge issue that one should be dealing with is equity, and how we could be making the whole process and the whole system and the whole commission look at it from an equity perspective and see how we can relate pretty much a little bit more to the community. And also on a small, minute matter, it has been, and if it has already happened, then I apologize. It has been about 6 years now since the commission has asked the county board for an anti-bullying policy. And about 2 years ago, we actually presented to the county board an actual anti-bullying written policy.
Mhm.
And it's my understanding that the county attorney doesn't have any problems with that anti-bullying policy. And I was just wondering when one thinks we're going to see something.
Okay, I think you may have mentioned to me years ago when I was not liaison, but that doesn't absolve me of responsibility. So, yes, Steve Good.
I'm Stephen Krieger. This is my second term on the commission. I'll keep it short. I think the single biggest thing on my mind is getting the update to the ordinance passed. It's been with the county board for not quite as long as the anti-bullying thing, 6 years, but certainly many, many months.
Update overall to the
Well,
ordinance.
either the overall ordinance update or just the smaller update that I think we sent, and Helen can speak to this in a minute, I'm sure, about getting the public schools included. The
Okay.
single biggest thing we can do.
Should we go to,
We've been going.
Ellen?
okay,
Ellen?
Hi, Matt. I'm sorry I'm not in the room with you. I've got a sick kid today, but my name is Helen Conley. I've been on the commission as long as Roland, about 12 years. Tonight is my final commission meeting, so I'm very sorry to say goodbye to the work. What brought me to it, Matt, was the passion to try to ensure that our community was progressive on these laws and on these processes. And we've been working hard for that over the past 12 years. I know that I've been on it. Appreciate you coming in tonight. And I really echo what Stephen and others have said. I'd really like to see some of that progress that this cohort has worked very hard on.
okay. And then, is Mr. Bose, is that right?
No.
It's not on the
He's
commission.
not on the commission, he's public. Okay,
Everybody else.
You go ahead.
Hi, Matt. I'm Angela Malone. I'm one of the newer members on the commission. I've been here for about 3 months now. I've been in Arlington for about 2 years. I came from Kansas City and I've served on a similar board there. We did a lot of community outreach, and so I'm hoping to bring some of that experience here. But very similar to the other commissioners, equity, fairness, and outreach is what's important to me.
okay.
And I'm Wanda Younger. I'm the second newest on the committee. I was appointed in November of last year. And we spoke about outreach, but I think one of my biggest concerns, just from the short period of time that I've been on this commission, is what I perceive the county board and our liaison having roadblocks or issuing roadblocks to what we are trying to do as a commission in terms of human rights and discrimination. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. Hopefully, if not, I'll have some questions, but I think that would be one of my biggest concerns, is what I perceive to be roadblocks from the county board and our liaison from allowing us to do our work, as well as, it's my understanding that the county board has also prohibited the Housing Commission from working with us. So I would like to hear a little bit more on that as well.
Okay,
I am Stefan Klein. I've been on the commission for 2 years, but I was also on the commission from, I think, 1994 to 2002. Not sure I have anything to add, but I actually did not know what you were referencing at the beginning when you said source of income is on the
sure.
agenda this Saturday. I don't know that that's been an issue that we as a commission have
Okay,
focused on.
Ordinance, it's one of the updates to the ordinance.
It has been an issue.
all right, good.
Oh, my next, okay,
Yep.
yeah. So, my name's Fatima. I have been in commission for, I guess, nearly 2 years. What brought me to the commission is my interest in passion for keeping us all accountable. It's just the way I think, I think everyone should be judged by the same standards. Standards for equity, having all the standards apply to everyone, and also, keeping up with developments so that we remain a progressive community, and we continue to use whatever to keep up with what's going on in the world, and apply those to processes to keep up, to be current.
Great, okay. So I'm gonna try and respond to everyone's questions and do the best I can, and then give an opportunity for folks to follow up. I respect each of your truths. I heard loud and clear a couple of truths that are direct, and I respect those. I will try to be a human being, and you do not have to treat me any nicer, but I do have a 12-week-old that's at home. And I'm a human being, so I may say things that are imperfect. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't hold me accountable. And so let's dig into it. Outreach into the community, Bill. I've been an organizer in Iowa for John Kerry. That's, people have different opinions about him, but I do think some of the concepts of organizing and community outreach I'm aware of. I do really try to listen and engage. Sometimes that's not easy. It's a matter of public record that there's some things that some would argue are related to equity that I supported, missing middle, that a lot of people really didn't like me for. I tried to listen. And there's detail there. I guess the question, I'll be interested in further thought about how we best do outreach in the community. I think you mentioned, Walter, the support of the board. That's fair. There's a question of whether, there's staff that's here. And then there's my impression at this moment is that staff is both here to be accessible and engaged, but I would not currently honestly describe it as community organizing and that type of outreach that is in the current mission. And I could be wrong. But being available in the community and being at events is certainly a part of the work. And so, further thoughts about that, I'd be interested in fleshing that out with all those who mentioned outreach in the community. Walter, I should say a couple of things. One other thing about why I wasn't here last time. The Northern Virginia Transportation Authority is I'm a member of that commission, and it's mostly mayors and chairs of different places. They provide money to Arlington and other places for transportation projects. Some of the work they do is Metro, which I see as critically equity related and frankly, if there weren't majorities in both chambers of Virginia House, and I worked really hard to make that happen, Metro funding would not be something that would be in. So I think it's a reasonable commission. I had not been to their commissions. I took a modified paternity leave. I went to 5 meetings in the month of January because I wanted to try and be a good, I'm pretty addicted to politics. I wanted to be a good dad. So I've been 2 months without being at that commission, and it's the same night. And I'm, so that's context on that. Back to, I think there's a little context on human rights. To my knowledge, the history of human rights is, the acronym HRC is, there's a massive building in DC that is the Human Rights Campaign, and I keep associating with the history of the Human Rights Commission. I didn't research all pieces of it, but you got the gay rights, it's the ordinance from 1989. You got the gay rights movement that was there, moving the human rights movement, and then I don't know when Hillary said stuff in China that changed the phrase human rights, but there's a history to it. I think we have an expanding definition of human rights, as we should. The board, the board, under the ordinance, the board should not, that's why we weren't in the room. The board should not be. You should decide individual cases, and the ordinance includes a number of different areas for action. Let's see, I'll jump ahead, and, I think, Helen, you said, and this is related to Walter, your comments, progressive ordinances and laws in the community. You want us to be as good as Arlington purports to be. We purport to be this super progressive, accepting, equity-based place. I don't believe that we are as good as we tout. And I both have to take responsibility for that, and I also ran for the board to make us closer to an actually progressive community. And so I want to, I think the board can and should do more. I think that we'll talk about the education piece. But so I'll just keep going and we'll get into exchange. But, I think that Christian has been liaison the last 2 years, I think. He came in December, I believe. I'm mindful that source of income, your question, is about housing, whether landlords can discriminate against those who get housing choice vouchers as part of their payment for housing. So essentially saying, I think you're low income, I'm not going to let you rent from me. And the Housing Commission and the Human Rights Commission, to my understanding, have been saying for years, let's do that. And I have been saying, whenever this comes up, I've been saying, let's do that. It wasn't the law in Virginia that you could do that until 4 years ago or so. Mr. Macbeth has been pushing on it. I know this commission has. We are finally doing it on Saturday, and it's an area of work that I hope that we can engage in, because there are challenges to our community in terms of embracing and accepting the 24,000 Arlingtonians who live on $45,000 a year or less, and those who on source of income. So that's part of what I see as human rights in our community. Carol, to your questions. I'm also newly, last year and this year, the liaison to the Disabilities Commission. I was fairly critiqued. We have way more bus stops compared to Fairfax County. They just have whole areas that don't even have bus stops, but it's too slow. Not a lot of our bus stops are accessible. And so I pressed on that. I was criticized in 2022 about this fairly, and I pressed on that and continue to press on it. And we do have a plan for working on that. It's not as fast as I would like it to be. There are other instances where our work on disabilities falls short. There's also standards, as you probably know, and probably everybody, that there's ADA compliance, which is not always as good as what we need for true inclusion of those with and making it really accessible. And so in the capital improvement plan, I have an ask that I'm focused on to, adult changing stations are an issue that's been brought up a number of times by several activists. And, this building and 2 or 3 other buildings, it is a little bit of question of resources, but it is still, I think it's fair that we have more to do in that broader area. I mean, sidewalks, we sometimes build, but they're not always even enough so people can use them. So there's more to do there for sure. Roland, equity, I get letters I live in far north Arlington, and I get and I like some of my neighbors. I like a lot of them. I do not stay up at night worrying about my streets. I worry about the 24,000 people who live under $45,000 a year. And to me, equity is, you now hear equity being used by some to say, we need equity, I need soundproof pickleball courts in X, Y, or Z place. And that's true. That's a fair concern, but I think sometimes equity is now used as a sword by those who are not consistent with the equity resolution that we passed, just to be honest. Anti-bullying policy. So I think I can picture where you first mentioned this to me. It was probably at Freddie's annual barbecue, or annual, and that's my guess. I think what I did is followed up, and it's related to this question of the schools that you brought up, Stephen. And Christian came, and people asked the county board to tell the school board what to do. That's not my view of the job. They are separately elected. It is I think if I polled you, most people would say it's a harder job than being on the county. It's a really hard job. So for us, through a commission to assert jurisdiction over the schools, I think Christian talked a little bit about with you, and my impression was trying to sort of hear you out and being your agreement. I certainly think that we should ask the superintendent to come to the commission. But I also don't, ultimately I'd love to hear more. I don't think that the county board should be telling the schools how they should do things. That's just not, I don't think we should be asserting jurisdiction over school-based issues, because that's not, that doesn't keep the lines of accountability that should be there. Have I read, mostly it was during the Obama administration, the stories of bullying, particularly with trans and, and gay young people, were horrible. Bullying is it is a serious, serious concern. I don't think that the county board should be saying, we have jurisdiction and we can force the school board to do this. That's my view. And because I think that, candidly, I think that on the environment and on bullying issues, there's a lot of advocacy we need to do before the school board. And so that's a thought. I don't pretend that will be fully satisfying, given Stephen, to you, given your leadership and your my impression of the work you've done as an attorney. I try and help people. So, but I should be honest with you that that's about what my view is. I guess I feel to some extent, I'm not as skilled at having everybody come away agreeing, thinking that, I would say that there are other past board members who you can come away and everybody thinks they agree with it. And I'll share with you my views. And so happy to hear further.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Let me finish and then we'll come back. So, and I'm happy to come back then. So, and I'll move more quickly. Kansas City. Yeah. Kansas City and Equity, Fairness, and Outreach. Thank you for joining. There's, I think there was a 25-year federal desegregation case in Kansas City that struggles, and for sure. And so we talked about fairness and the other piece. Wanda, your points. I would say my view is that there's a finite, with respect to housing, I think there's a finite amount of resources. And we just learned we have a homeless growing homeless challenge. I would respectfully say that I don't feel that I am, I may be a roadblock. I just don't think that I'm the biggest of the concerns. And I will seek to engage specifically on the jail. There are huge budget asks that I think we might share in agreement. And I would love to get to the substance of those two, and I know you have thoughts on them. And I appreciate, some of the video where I was pretty roundly criticized. Helped me over the last 2 weeks as I've been trying to be working hard on some of the jails related issues. And so I guess that's what I would say to that point. And then Stefan, we talked about source of income. I think I addressed most of what you mentioned, and we'll come back quickly. But I appreciate your work. And then Fatima, we absolutely need to all be accountable, and that includes me. And so I want to keep up with developments. I think I covered Helen Ann, what you mentioned, and so I did talk for a while. So why don't we start with Stefan, and then we'll go to others.
We can do that. If anybody wants to ask a follow-up questions, just raise your hand.
Sure.
And I'll recognize.
So I was going to ask about the jail issue, but it was in the context of how you frame the school's separate jurisdiction. And clearly, we as a commission don't agree with the process response. We think we had jurisdiction and addressed it, but forgetting the process, I can't imagine that the county board doesn't think it's a legitimate issue that there are lots of people dying in jails and something needs to happen. And the county board really hasn't spoken out a lot. And I wonder is that because the sheriff is elected as the county board members are, or is there some other reason why you aren't getting more involved in demanding accountability for what's now, 2 deaths in the last, few months following many deaths over the last number of years. I just, when you were talking about the schools in that way, I wondered if something like that was behind the issue, that you think you really, even though you have jurisdiction, it's somebody else's issue because the sheriff is elected.
Yeah, so we provide a lot of money to the sheriff, in addition to the sheriff's office. We have, I think it was, by today's count, Department of Human Services has about 16 or 18 people that work in jails on a regular basis. We can provide discretionary additional funding, and we do, for the sheriff's deputies. So in that sense, we have accountability because we could choose what to do about providing resources. We also can't go into the building and tell the sheriff at all what to do. We shouldn't, and also we can't. I could benefit. I could do a legal search as to those rules. I'm pretty darn confident that we can't. We shouldn't be saying, like, how do you do rounds in every last piece of the jail? So there's like a combination of, yes, the sheriff is separately elected, and it's his or her building, but we do provide money, and in that sense, we can request accountability for the money that we're spending. So,
but you also have a bully pulpit, and clearly you can ask for an investigation through DOJ that we asked for. I mean, you said we couldn't do it, but you certainly could.
yes,
There's a lot that you could do, and I don't understand why you aren't more exercised about this. Not you as
Sure.
an individual, but the county board. Why don't they say, seems really bad. It's bad for PR if not actually really bad. Why aren't you?
absolutely. Any death weighs on me anywhere in the county. These deaths, on every one, I have had questions, and I think it is fair to debate that you could have said me and the full board could have been more public. So example, fair critique, in 2022, we had a death and I was pissed about the medical provider. And I said, I had a series of questions that I want to ask. And I said it on the dais at 8:45 or 8:50 one morning. And I followed up on them. And after, in the last 2 deaths, which have come subsequent, I've asked myself, what did I accomplish that I said I would do? So we changed medical providers. We basically fired our medical provider after that. So there's speaking publicly, consistently and loudly, and then there's doing the work, and they're interlocked. But there's also, for me, in addition to pointing out problems, I think it's important also to work on solutions. And so after that day, called the former sheriff a bunch of times and said, what is going on with the medical provider? Now, it turns out medical provision is really hard. There are about 3 companies that are private that provide this. Fairfax has a company, has some in-house staff. We have taken other steps since then. There are questions about employees and morale that have been raised. And I think that there's health questions and then how you manage questions. And both of them, we have levels of responsibility. And I think it is fair to say that the National Institute of Corrections is a DOJ entity, but it is not a DOJ investigation. And so it's also, so I think that, you know, there are different components to it. Of the 5 board members, I've been amongst the most vocal about it. And you could still say I should be more vocal about it. It is a fact that losing anyone is a problem. It is also a fact that our society and the county board bears some responsibility. We need to provide more resources to address some of those who have died have been in difficult health before they come in. And that is a community we should act and do more on. So I can take, you know, bottom line answer to your question. I can take criticism there. And what I would say though is, I think it's important every time you know, just calling for a DOJ investigation. I don't know what communities you know have had DOJ investigations, but just calling for one does not fix the problem. And so I believe that, you know, just saying we need a DOJ investigation without also working the problem to try and solve, I believe in doing that in addition. And so I hope that's the start of a good answer for you.
Just to clarify, when I was saying you, I didn't actually mean Matt. I meant you as the
And I don't take it personally. What I do have to take is ownership of my part of it. And I'm trying to, you may not agree with everything I said, but I hope I'm trying to answer your question. Wanda, or Bill, whatever
I
you.
was gonna say, Carol raised her hand and then Wanda would.
Yeah, and I'll be quick. Matt, I just wanted to say there are a lot of issues with the disability question besides just the accessibility, which is still a problem. By the way, the bathroom that I needed to use earlier is still not accessible and the building's been renovated. So that's definitely frustrating for me and more so for people who really need the accessibility. But I just want to go on record. It's been at least 3 years, and Roland, you probably know better than me exactly how long it's been since we've had a full commission. We were supposed to have 12 members. We have 10. This is the most we've had in years, and Helen announced that this is her last meeting, so we'll be back down to 9. The county board needs to do better. Honestly, they need to do better in showing that they are interested in human rights. And a really good first step is going out and looking for people to serve and join us in this commission so we can get work done.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I think, you know, there's also overlapping jurisdictions, so that the bathroom, you know, disability rights advocate brought that to me. And so that is one of the CIP things, this very space, because someone had struggles and the story she told was near overwhelming. And I think simultaneously, the Human Rights Commission in the ordinance is included, I also candidly feel that for the last year and this year, I am disability liaison. We need more people there. We're short there, and that is also a place that is a venue for this.
And Wanda, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned, just calling for a DOJ investigation won't fix the issue, and that the county board can't just walk into the jail and tell the sheriffs what to do. Why won't the county board support publicly a DOJ investigation into the jail for patterns and practices? The DOJ could have the authority to go inside to determine if there are any patterns or practice or issues that need to be addressed. And I know you mentioned the deaths have something to do with medical concerns underlining, but I'm sure you know and you're aware that at least one of the deaths had to do with improper practices by a deputy. If you don't know about that, I'll be happy to share that information. So it's not all medical. And if it was as simple as people are dying because of medical conditions, the NAACP is having a difficult time getting information from the sheriff's office. They FOIA'd the sheriff's office for several years and continuously get denied the FOIA requests or receive the information that we ask at NAACP.
So on the FOIA piece, I hope that my comments tonight indicate I do believe that, so for example, the NIC report, I said, get it out. It was on a website and you guys, to my understanding, hadn't gotten, the first NIC report, or few may not. I generally believe, we should, FOIAs to him don't come to us, but when I talk with him, I say, hey, provide information unless there's a legal reason. Get it out there. Because I think maybe last meeting is evidence that, once the information is out there, that there can be more clarity about what the mistakes are. You know, as well as I do, that so many of the deputies are working hard, and I don't believe that malevolence is what we're talking about. I think we might agree on that. It's setting up systems and making sure that there's clarity about how those systems must be followed. That in my conversations that I think are the challenge. And so, that's on the FOIA piece of it. I can't tell the sheriff what to do on a FOIA. Usually, frankly, the prior sheriff didn't tell me a lot about FOIAs that would happen. So I simultaneously have to take responsibility for engaging with the former sheriff and the current sheriff. But I shouldn't pretend that I can, per se, order him to do things or order her to do things. So that's a little bit on FOIA. On the patterns and practices, there was a lawsuit, it's a matter of public record, that was successful on the state level. And I think from afar, some people respond to lawsuits by being concerned and afraid to share information. And I think that is not an unreasonable thing to do. But, one thing I didn't do in preparation for this meeting is extensive research on pattern and practice. What I did do since this issue came up is refocused my efforts on what to get in the budget and what to do about making the jail safer for people. And so, I believe that I believe that other county board members broadly on direction do feel that the best place to focus is on the budget and engaging facts that I've found, things that I've done. On the 27th of February, there's a slide deck, PowerPoint of things that I've worked on. You came, and for everybody's benefit, and this doesn't obviate my responsibility, but the Community Criminal Justice Board for the last 10, 15 years, and I'm friends with Paul Ferguson, it has not been active. And I think it should be. And I think the proper venue for deep work on the community criminal justice, on jail issues is that commission. I'm not saying that there's not overlapping jurisdiction with this commission, but I feel that that is the proper place to do a lot of the work that we really have to do. So the 27th, I have a slide deck. You can look at it. It's on the county board. I really have been focusing on how much money would it cost to add resources to the doctor that we got in closeout. It was a physician's assistant in closeout, which is October. And so I've been focusing on stepping that up to be a medical director, because that's what I think should be done there. The contract, and it's a matter of public record, I don't think there's any reason you couldn't FOIA this, but the contract, the new contract with a new medical provider, I don't believe that fully trying immediately to go in-house is the right solution, because there's so many different medical services that are necessary at the jail. What I do believe is that we should have a medical director, and that's worth the investment that we absolutely should do. So that would mean stepping up the position we put in closeout to a more expensive position and having it be a doctor so that we can better monitor the medical care. That is, we have a doctor, but it's under the contract. And I was happy that the last provider was fired. I don't know that I don't believe nationally we should have private contractors providing security in our federal jails or any jails. I do think that there are some services, the front of the jail, we're low on deputies in the front of the jail. It's worked in some other places, and I wanted to free up some resources. So there's a lot of detail. I've been focused on a lot of that detail and doing a lot of that work. That doesn't mean that what I've accomplished so far is acceptable. It does mean that I'm really trying. And, the broader question of pattern and practice, I do feel that sometimes, there's 5, 6 lawyers in the room. I don't know. Litigation is not always the best way to achieve change, in my experience. But that does not mean that you can't ask and say, you still should be asking for a pattern practice. I just will tell you, I have not. That hasn't been my focus in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And before that period, I am a renewed member. I was a member for a long time, and there's 6 or 8 months or maybe more, where I wasn't an NAACP member. I think it's fair to critique to say I could have focused earlier from seeing those events and seeing emails on whether I should have analyzed a pattern and practice earlier. So I'm not saying you can't ask more questions, but I hope I've tried to answer some of them.
Yeah, I just have 2 quick
Sure.
follow-ups.
Yeah.
Because you and the sheriff mentioned NIC, the National Institute of Corrections, a lot. That is not what the Human Rights Commission or the NAACP is asking. It's 2 separate types of investigations. In fact, the NIC clearly stated in their report that they didn't look at any of the deaths. That wasn't their charge, and that's not what they were there to do. The Human Rights Commission and NAACP is looking into the deaths through a patterns and practice. Mm-hmm. And the question that I have for you, and I know you said you don't know enough about pattern and practice, but do you support a Department of Justice investigation into the jail?
Well, without knowing pattern and practice, no, I can't say I believe. I'm willing to investigate and understand it more. But I should not say amen without knowing a little bit about it. Now, the answer to the first question, absolutely 100% agree. I know enough about the national coverage of pattern and practice. My impression nationally is that when it's happened, Arlington's jail might be towards the progressive side of Virginia, but Virginia's history is abysmal, in my opinion, and nationally, we might be decent by some measures. That's not our community's measure. And so, you know, my impression is that there are many jails across the country that have significant regular challenges. I'm not saying that ours aren't ones we need to take seriously and they're not significant and regular, but I've tried to understand what's going on in each case. And so I 100% agree with you. National Institute, you could say technically, one of my colleagues said to me in private conversations, said, we're talking to the DOJ. And that doesn't wash for me at all. I agree with you 100% on that. So I will commit to learning more and looking more into it. And I'm fair to be critiqued on that. But what I also say is, I hope it's reasonable to say that in addition to that, I have a deadline of 38 days to put stuff in the budget. And I would love if there were, NAACP, Arlington for Justice, human rights commissioners, I'd love to see people showing up and saying, we need $1 million for bracelets. We need X for this. I'm open to further ideas, but I will look at pattern and practice to understand it better because I think it's a fair question. I will say one other thing, because it came up in a conversation with NAACP leadership, which is I have a work item of 5 things that I said in that conversation that I would work on. I have not finished all of them, but one of the things requested is, what was the cause of death of Miss Wilda Georges? And engaged with the police chief a number of times on it. And there's a separate question that was requested for a letter to the state medical examiner. Miss Wilda Georges' death was natural causes, but a meeting with the Commonwealth's attorney has not been held. So there's not a conclusion as to what I don't know. They haven't even had a conversation as to whether there was any, because it can be natural causes, but still a problem. And so, it's ongoing, and I don't know any of that piece of it, but I think it's reasonable for me to try to update you at least on that piece. That doesn't mean, it's a separate question as to what Mr. Gani Tafti and will happen. And then beyond that, there's a statute, which, given how unpopular my providing a statute shortly before the last meeting was, there is a statute that talks about the medical examiner is limited from providing information. All of that said, the police chief is willing to meet with folks, to discuss and work on it. He said I have to be honest. I also want to respect the dead, and I don't, and families' confidentiality. But he is willing to do that. I think there's separate requests from the NAACP with respect to that. So I'm just trying to be accountable. But Stephen.
Sorry to change gears a little bit from the jail stuff and deaths to students and discrimination, but I'm happy to hear that you guys are taking your source of income. It's great. I have a law firm, we do tenant work. We do a big portion of tenant work. I can tell you honestly that in the last 6 months, maybe the last 12 months, 15 months, the number of calls that I've gotten from tenants complaining about source of income.
Yeah.
0. So I'm happy that this is going to address the 24,000 people that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But there's 28,000 students in APS.
Yeah.
We're not asking for money. We're not asking you to even do anything.
Yeah.
We just need the county board to approve the new ordinance that it makes it so that the public schools are included. And it's not just, I want you to understand, it's not just Arlington, right? This has already happened in Alexandria, Prince George's, Newport News, and Richmond. So it's not just a thing that we're trying to do to be the best. We should be the best.
Yeah.
But we're already behind.
Yeah.
We don't need money. You don't need to do anything. Just get out of the way.
Well, in order to require that they bring people here, my impression is we would need to act.
What do you mean?
In order to say schools, the Human Rights Commission is going to have the ability to call your employees in. I do think we would need to act, but I had not been aware of Alexandria or Newport News. I'll give you an example. Prevailing wage is something that we should do. we passed an ordinance, but we generally don't pass ordinances that apply to the schools. Because they are a separately elected body and they have a whole, as you know, PIPs, policy implementation. But if you share with me the text of the ordinance, I'm happy to engage on it. I can tell you that I feel that the venue for that, and I, 100% agree that there needs to be greater accountability. I believe in a tweaks to the county board's system of governance, because I think you have I'm a lefty and I'm a Arlington Democrat, but sort of have groupthink. And so I believe in changes to our system of governance. I also think that I get along with people on the school board. I think there could be greater accountability from that body too. But
this is just the Human Rights Commission. I'm not trying to make APS do things better or the school board do things better. I tried that before when it was successful. But what I'm trying to do is get the ordinance to include public schools. That doesn't mean that we're going to have APS come to our meetings. It just means that the students who are experiencing discrimination or other violations of the ordinance can bring their complaints to us, like the rest of the county.
yeah, I think the logical place that they should go is to the schools, to the superintendent and the school board. And I think that I believe at least that our saying that we can cover things, I think that there is a cost to saying in ordinances that we can fix problems that I'm not sure that we're best to fix. But I mean, I hear, if you want to share the,
But there's, you can say that about our entire commission. There are other places that folks can go to bring any kind of human rights complaint. You don't need to have our commission or our human rights ordinance for that. There's a Virginia one, there's national things people can do, but we're here in Arlington to do things sort of better and differently. So this idea that the students can go to the schools is some sort of compensation for not being able to come to us.
I mean, I guess I feel as though there are things that this commission uniquely does best. And I think like complaints that come before it and like those in the code. And I think that is where best place to engage and organize. But, I want to look at at the other places. I want to take a longer look at the ordinance changes. And I also want to be honest with you that, I raised the schools issue in conversation with Christian, in conversation with colleagues, and I don't want to overpromise that I know I can do that. And I don't even know yet that I am there to be persuaded with you. But you want to send them to me, and I will absolutely meet with you and look at them.
Steve, just being mindful of time. If anybody, and I saw you raise your hand, just want to make sure if any other commissioners have any questions for Matt who hasn't asked already.
One final question,
Yeah.
and this is not related on anything that's been discussed today. Can you tell me, what does the board contemplate doing with the project 2050? And are you going to be able to complete that by the end of the year, number one, like you wanted to do? And then number two, and this is based solely on the gala, the kickoff thing they have. Why aren't you considering form of government pretty much in that? Did you look at that whole picture as well?
It will not be finished this year. Livia said that, and it will not be finished. It will be started. And it's a matter of public record that she does not support some of the shifts in government. And so the phrase Patrick Hope has a bill. I believe in that bill. The coverage on that bill I do not think Patrick Hope, I think he's a good person. I do not think he did the outreach soon enough to as many people as he should have done. Hopefully doesn't, but I will be supporting that bill next year. Maybe not exactly as it's written. I'm not sure that California's history is that referendums are a great idea. But I think there's benefit to at-large seats and there's benefits to districts. And so I think we should have a mix of the two. But right now, Richmond's got the power, and I do not think that's right. I think that if we can pass Arlington having the ability, that's what I would do. So the phrase form of government refers to the county manager form of government. I want to make clear, I think the balance is off. I think the board should sometimes tell the manager more what to do. But I don't think that politicians should run the Department of Parks and Rec. And I do think that the independent police auditor should, it's the first bill that Governor Youngkin vetoed. And my opinion, he was elected on a racist lie, and he has been an abysmal failure. And it's very disappointing that the first bill that only impacted Arlington is something that he just vetoed because he wanted to be tough on crime. The history of that is antithetical, in my view, to the Human Rights Commission. So that is, it's a little tricky on the form of government, because I was in the minority for sure last year of people who supported shifts to the form of government. I don't know whether, I think I'm in the majority this year, but the time to take that up and pass it is next legislative session, unfortunately, and not this one. So, and with the chair, I just didn't feel that it was the right thing to try to litigate that at that stage. I was also candidly just problem solving because I was on paternity leave for that part of, I did have 5 or 6 phone calls on that topic, but I didn't feel that, I certainly couldn't persuade a majority of the last board to be in favor of some of those changes. And that's when the legislative package is done. And this board, I think, reasonably concluded, seemed to me, that more outreach needs to be done to at least socialize the idea, because it can't just be, the Sun Gazette. So anyway.
In reference to the Housing Commission, have you or any other member of the county board instructed the Housing Commission or any member of the Housing Commission not to interact with us, the Human Rights Commission? And then
No.
I would like Bill, if he has time, to share some information.
Yeah, sure. So, and I hope we can get into this.
And you said no, I'm sorry.
So I'm trying to remember there's a finite amount of time and resources. And there was a subject that I think was, I do not feel, there are some issues that I feel like, there was discussion of the Serrano, some of those issues, and that there was a subcommittee. There's also sometimes staff that is needed, but I have had conversations in this broad area, but I'm not right now remembering the topic that was the source of the request, I think, from Mr. Macbeth about the work that folks wanted to do. And so maybe you'll refresh my memory, but I didn't want to say, I think instructed is a little strong, but I do think that I have a little to say on commissions. Commissions are a way to listen and engage with our community. It is also the case that some years ago we had the Emergency Preparedness Commission, which felt that it should instruct the firefighters on how to do things. Nope. Don't agree with that. And so, anyway. Go ahead.
This has, so you mentioned Kel Macbeth from the Housing Commission reached out to me. We haven't had time to discuss it as a commission, so we don't, as a commission, have a position yet, but Kellen was inquiring about the possibility of having a joint subcommittee between the 2 commissions to work on areas of housing where it's interrelated between the Human Rights Commission and a variety of different areas. But we'll get into a more like substantive discussion in like a subsequent our next meeting. But if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Wanda.
I just want to make sure, is there any restriction from the Housing Commission and the Human Rights Commission from engaging in conversations and working together to address human rights, housing issues, equity issues? I just want to make sure that we're able to communicate.
No, well, absolutely. Whenever there's a commission meeting done, it has to be noticed, and so that you comply with open meetings. I think source of income may have been a subject that there was some interest on working on. And I will say, I think in COVID, Eric Berkey and many other commission chairs wrote us a letter. I don't recall if Helen Ann was on it or that was, we had commissions closed for way longer than I thought they should be because of worry about open meetings and virtual meetings. Virtual meetings do take some infrastructure to do, but little d democratic input from commissions is something I believe in. I believe in, and it's doesn't make me popular with my wife. I believe in messy conversations. I had a lot of messy conversations about missing middle, for example. But I think it's important to scope out the purpose and to think of, to try to get alignment. I would like to see if we can get alignment with where the board is and where this commission is so that we can make progress. And I also need to be honest where I don't think there's alignment, but go ahead.
Just to clarify. So if I'm understanding correctly, would there be ability, and this is what I discussed with Alan, for each commission to subsequently agree to a subcommittee on a particular subject? Like the HRC votes on that, they vote on that, then the positions filled members from each respective commission. That in and of itself, Kellen seemed to believe was something that was doable, but I think what you were saying is it also would depend on the subject area or the purpose of the committee is where you're saying that.
Yeah, because we have 60 commissions. We try to liaison to those commissions. And, I think that it's appropriate if folks feel differently and there should be a new commission, then the venue would be make noise and say there should be a new commission. I think I'll give you an example. I believe in JFAC, Joint Facilities Advisory Commission. Staff did not. And I did not have the votes to force that commission to be a livable, breathable commission. In COVID, it was not appropriate for a year to think long-term, in my opinion. All that was appropriate is to get vaccines out to those who needed them for a while. But without my experiences, without staff support or staff acquiescence or engagement, we shouldn't, in my view, be creating new commission type work unless there's a purpose. And there may be a purpose, but it's one where let's work together to see what's there, and let's also find what would be a focus area that the board, I can work with you and the board can work with you to make that align. And I don't want to overpromise that I can fix everything, but things like we haven't rewritten the ordinance in a long time. I became liaison and I said, and to her credit, Susan Cunningham, others said, let's get source of income done. To our understanding, you guys have been asking for a long time. So help me, come back to me, work with me. I'm not in a let's create things. I think that there is the human rights movement is like, a movement. And so if you're on this commission, human rights for everyone. And that is important. And it's also the case that like having a scope and target of what the various work that we're working on is going to be the best. And what you don't need is me to say, sure, we're going to do schools tomorrow, or we'll think about it and not decide on it for a year. We need to work at the alignment, I believe. So you want to come back. I also think there's a lot of housing issues, pure housing issues, and then that for them to work on. But in any event, I've talked a long time, and I want to give you guys the last word.
Matt, I just want to point out that it's great to do some of these things piecemeal, but we still use the word handicap in our ordinance. So, I don't know why it's taking so long for us to get the ordinance updated. And I know that there are parts now that you're maybe not comfortable with passing in terms of coverage, school, students, employees and county employees. But if you could please add that to your agenda, that would make a lot of people very happy. That is very antiquated language. Thank you.
All right, with that, Matt, thanks for joining. If we can move on to the rest of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, is there any public comment? No, I'll move on to the approval of the January minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the January minutes.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that passes. Any extensions?
You have one extension.
James Carter.
There were two witnesses that were unavailable on maternity leave. One had left the organization, has now been located, but we can interview, wrapping it up, but won't be able to get it quite done before we get 1 year.
Okay, all right. Okay, with that, I see it's 9:05. Unless anybody has anything else to raise.
So you need to vote on the motion to extend.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah. I'll entertain a motion to extend that.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Right.
I do have
Unanimously.
one question
Go
before
ahead.
we adjourn. Is this the time and place to ask about what we talked about earlier during the closed meeting in terms of the appeal?
Oh, we could talk about it now. I just didn't want to hold everybody.
Being a diabetic. Who needs insulin?
We should bring
We have
Virginia into the.
Yeah.
It's gonna affect the human resident.
I mean, yeah, so I plan to add it onto the next agenda. It's just, I'm not sure. if people-
Is that okay to add on to
That's
that?
fine, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll add it, we'll add that into the April, and reminder, the April one is completely virtual. Complete, or it's no one will be
complete
here.
virtual.
Complete
Okay.
virtual.
But so no one, we don't have to, no one has to be here to, have a, establish a quorum. Okay.
Oh, and by way of information, I don't think too many people know about it, but the legislature did pass and the governor did sign a bill dealing with Freedom of Information Act, and it's effective July 1st. That means that commissions, half of their meetings can be virtual. And I don't know whether that is effective with the rest of the meetings, but it will be effective July 1st. So I don't know the impact that's going to have on the number of meetings that we can have from that point on being virtual, but clearly half of all our meetings now can be virtual effective July 1st.
We set our meetings for the year based on that,
We did it based on the Sire law.
oh, we did, oh, I'm sorry, not on this new one.
Not the
Okay.
new law, yeah.
We should probably get that law and have that law for the April meeting.
Okay. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Thank you.
And